Welcome to Write with Love. I'm Sarah Williams, best-selling author, speaker, and creative entrepreneur. Each week I chat to passionate and inspiring authors about their journey in creative writing. Some are traditionally published, some do it themselves. Everyone's journey is different, and everyone has something interesting to say. We all love love and love what we do. Today's show is brought to you by our amazing fans and supporters on Patreon. If you'd like to help support the show and get some awesome bonus episodes, go to patreon.com/SarahWilliamsAuthor to learn more. Now here's today's show. G'day, I'm Sarah Williams, romance author and independent publisher at Serenade Publishing. Today I'm talking to Sandy Spencer, who writes as SM Spencer. Thanks for joining me, Sandy.
Thank you for having me, Sarah.
It's not a drama. Can you just tell us a little bit about your journey to publication so far?
Okay, well, I suppose I wanted to be an author since I was a small child. My mother was a librarian, so the house was always full of books, and she encouraged us to read from a very young age. And I think what really did it for me was reading Daphne du Maurier, and one of her books, Frenchman's Creek. I think I must have rewritten the ending to that book several times, and it stayed with me because I would have read that book over 40 years ago, and I can still remember the emotions that book brought up in me. And I always wanted to do that for someone else. I wanted to be able to create something that could do that. But when I first went to university, after about 12 months, I realized that this little English major that was 19 years old and hadn't lived anywhere and hadn't done anything wasn't really going to make a terribly good author. So I decided to change my major, and I studied business instead, business and accounting. And so I sort of put all those dreams of writing on hold for quite a few years while I did a job that paid well but didn't really satisfy my creative instincts. So, but the good thing that it did was it got me to Australia, because the company I was working for transferred me over here for 3 months. And at the end of the 3 months, I was like, wow, can I go back? So I was very fortunate to be able to come back to Australia. And after, again, working for sort of 20 odd years, I ended up working in Melbourne in Franklin Street, which was very close to the Queen Victoria Markets and Flagstaff Gardens. And Flagstaff Gardens was the original Burial Hill in Melbourne. And Queen Victoria Market, the car park, was the large graveyard. And there's still some 9,000 bodies under that car park at the Queen Victoria Market that were never exhumed. So here I found myself working in this area that was just brimming with ghostly possibilities. And so I started writing a book about ghosts and vampires. Vampires were very popular at the time. Twilight was sort of at its peak. And so I wrote a vampire and ghost story trilogy and absolutely loved it. Sent it off to a few agents and a couple of publishers, and got a lot of thank you very much for your submission, but it's not right for us at the moment. You've kind of missed the whole vampire time frame. So I just sort of put it aside, and in the meantime I ended up retiring and started playing bridge, and met a gentleman who had self-published, and we started talking, and he encouraged me to just do it. And so I just did it. And then after having published that, I gained confidence that I could do it, and I was horse mad from a 5-year-old. And I was not a city person. So coming to Australia was like heaven for me. And I started dreaming about, what it would be like to live in one of those small towns in sort of that Golden Triangle area, which is sort of Bendigo, Ballarat. And I actually bought a small property in Trentham. that I owned for a few years, and sort of it was a miner's cottage, and I had dreams of going up there and becoming this little author, sitting in my little miner's cottage and working in this small town. Never happened. I ended up, we got married, and we've moved to 6 acres south of Melbourne, but those feelings in that small town were still in me, and so I thought, I'm going to write a story that's kind of, I can draw so much inspiration from my own life. Here's this woman who wants to live in the country, and she takes her horse and goes off and buys a little house, and she's going to be a writer. And so that was the beginning of my Copperhead Creek series. And because I'd self-published the vampire ones, I thought, well, I sent it off to one woman, and it wasn't right for her. And then I just thought, nah, I'm just too impatient to send it around. And I just thought, I'm just going to do it. And I did it. And that was my journey to publication.
Excellent.
Am I with a big house, and can I see my books at the airport? No.
Not yet.
But I've had a lot of fun with it.
That's fantastic. So you've got your vampires and you've got your rural romance. So that must be an interesting crossover. Do people ever get a little bit confused between it?
It's reasonably easy to tell that they're very different stories. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. One's very much a young adult. The vampires is very much she's a 9-year-old girl. So
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So how many?
And all my writing is it's.
Go on.
Oh, sorry. All my writing is quite clean. I try to avoid any language that people would find offensive, and even though they're adults and they have adult situations, it takes place behind closed doors. So if somebody's read the vampire books and then reads my other books and they're a young teenager, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, excellent. And that's brilliant. So I love how you were saying that moving out to the country and becoming a writer. I'm reading that book at the moment. I'm loving it. It's gorgeous. I love Tom. He's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
And so that's an interesting thing. I guess a lot of, particularly us writers, we all aspire, it'd be so nice to move to the country and be able to write full time and fall in love with this gorgeous tall guy and have horses, and I love it. I'm just reading going, I want this life. So why do you think you're writing Australian? Have you ever thought about writing an American cowboy story, or it's really more an Australian passion?
Well, I've lived here now for 33 years. So, I thought about writing a book based in San Francisco because I was going to write the 4th book to my vampire series, but I don't feel like I know San Francisco well enough anymore to do that, to write a contemporary book set there. And I sort of feel the same about most parts of America. I've traveled more in Australia than I have in the U.S. I've never been to Texas. I've never been to Oklahoma. It would be really hard for me to get my head around those areas. And this is easier for me because it's what I'm surrounded by. It's where I live. I actually live on 6 acres. I have 3 horses. And even though it's not rural, it's sort of a small town feel. So it's sort of what I'm living and breathing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's gorgeous. Actually, I do know there is an Australian romance author who lives in the city, and she writes country rural romance like us. She said she's learned everything she writes about through YouTube. Oh, that was quite funny, actually. But so you sell your books through Amazon through the Kindle Unlimited program. How is that going for you?
I like it. It enables me to run a promotion for each book once every 3 months. So I have a choice between either having it free for up to 5 days, or I can do a countdown deal, which I've only done one once, so I'm not entirely sure how it creeps up, but it starts at 99 cents and then it creeps back up to the full price. I've only done that once, and I've chosen for the others to always go with just having it free for a few days, in the hopes that I might attract some new readers that then read that book and go, oh, I might get the rest of the series.
Yeah.
So that's working.
Yeah, that's excellent. No, that's cool. And do you think you'll go wide at some point in the future, or you're pretty happy with Amazon?
I probably will at some stage. I think I'm a little bit chicken, just because I feel comfortable with what I've been doing, and so that's a change. And it's like, oh, it's sort of uncomfortable where I am. But I know that the elusive BookBub is very difficult to get, and you have a much greater chance of getting it if you are wide than if you are simply with Amazon. So, yeah, I think I'm going to have to go wide if I want to expand my readership.
Yeah, yeah.
And I need a website.
Yes, you do need a website. You're on social media, but no website. It's crazy. Excellent. Yeah. Do you think, though, using Kindle Unlimited helps with getting your American market? I know there's a lot of us here in Australia, myself included. We do quite well getting the Australian market, but it can be a bit trickier trying to break into the American market. So a couple of questions on that. Do you think it helps you getting the American market, being on Kindle Unlimited? And how do you write in terms of your spelling? Is it American spelling or is it Australian spelling?
With the Kindle Unlimited, I get a huge number of download. I get a huge number of pages read with the Kindle Unlimited, and most of that is in the U.S. So I don't know how many books have actually sold in the U.S. versus the Kindle Unlimited pages read. So I'd say it is a big help being on Kindle Unlimited, because I think it's only $9.99 a month for them. And so if you get somebody that's reading a lot, they can go through hundreds of books in a month or whatever. And so it's very economical way for them to read. So that has helped a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot the second half
Sorry.
of the question.
I shouldn't have asked two questions at once.
I forgot the second half of the question.
Do you run your books with an American spell check or Australian? So mum or mom?
Yeah, no, I use Australian spelling, and I use the Australian single quotes for dialogue.
Yeah.
What I do try to do, except it's very difficult for me to remember because I've lived here for 32 years now, but I do try to use words if I think that one word might work better. Like, for instance, a kitchen bench versus a kitchen counter. Australians would talk about the kitchen bench. Americans would talk about a kitchen counter. So where there's a word that I think is going to be confusing, I try not to use it. I try to restructure my sentences. But I do use Australian spelling, and I'm not afraid to throw Australian slang in there and give the characters realistic dialogue.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Brilliant. So what are you working on at the moment?
I'm in my series, in the Copperhead Creek series, there's a policeman. He's Sergeant Rob Anderson, who's the town cop. And so the next book I'm writing at the moment is, it's a murder mystery. And so he becomes the main character rather than just a small minor character. And it's a murder mystery. So if I do well with it, if I'm happy with it, I may continue that as a series. And if not, then that will become the last book of the current series.
Oh, excellent.
If I don't think that I can keep going with it.
Yeah, yeah. And more vampires in your future?
Well, it's interesting. A friend of mine the other day said, "When are you going to write book 4?" So maybe I could continue that story.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, vampires never really get
I've
old.
always been fascinated with the occult.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic.
Well, I went to Port Arthur a week ago and saw all the ruins, and a friend of mine lent me her little device. It's like an electromagnetic thing to look for ghosts. And so I walked around, sort of snuck around in rooms and made sure nobody was watching, and I did my little thing. Didn't find any, unfortunately.
I did the night tour there one night, and oh my God, that is the scariest thing I've ever done in my life, so never again.
Port Arthur.
Yeah. Yeah, very scary place.
You did the night one at Port Arthur?
Yeah.
I didn't do that. No, that would be a little bit scary.
Very scary. Very, very. They take you into the morgue and you can smell, I forget what it's called, but that stuff that they use with embalming, it's quite a, it's going to bomb.
Formaldehyde.
Formaldehyde, that's what it's called. Yeah, it's really strong in there. And yeah, no, I love reading about it, but I don't want to do that again. Well, thank you so much, Sandy. I've really enjoyed talking to you today. Where can we find you online, even though you don't have a website?
Well, I have a Facebook author page, and I'm on Goodreads, and I have my Amazon author page, and I'm on Twitter. So I promise I will do a website in the not too distant future.
Excellent. We might do a workshop, and it's how to do Sandy's website. That's that's wonderful. Thank you so much for talking to me today, Sandy. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Jump onto my website, sarahwilliamsauthor.com, and join my mailing list to receive a free preview of my books and lots of inspiration. If you like the show and want it to continue, you can become a sponsor for just a couple of dollars a month. Go to patreon.com/sarahwilliamsauthor to find out more. And remember to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and leave a review of the podcast. I'll be back next week with another loved up episode. Bye.